Have you ever felt that tug? You want to do something, maybe finally start that project or even just get out the door for a walk, but then it's like your feet are glued to the floor
Oh, absolutely.
or an idea spark, something genuinely exciting, and then poof, doubt creeps in, the what ifs start swirling, and you don't move.
That moment of hesitation, yeah, that feeling of being stuck when you know you want to act, it's a universal experience, isn't it?
Total.
And often, right at the heart of it is the need to tap into something we all actually possess, courage.
Exactly. And that's precisely what we're diving into today.
Hmm.
We're not necessarily talking about, grand acts of heroism.
No, not the movie stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
But the everyday courage it takes to move past those moments of hesitation. Our guide for this exploration is The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins, a book that really boils down courage to a simple principle.
Which is?
Basically, the ability to act despite feeling difficult, scary, or uncertain.
Hmm. And our goal today really is to distill the essence of this technique for you. We want to provide a practical understanding of how to access that innate courage so
Right.
you can bypass the mental roadblocks, pursue your goals, and ultimately live more fully.
So like a fast track to understanding how to shift from thinking to actually doing
Is
instantly.
this the idea? Quick but thorough knowledge, actionable insights.
Okay, so let's get into the core of it then.
Yeah.
The author, Mel Robbins, she had this real turning point, and it's surprisingly straightforward.
Yeah, it wasn't some complex theory she developed over years.
No, she was watching a rocket launch on TV,
Yeah.
that iconic countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ignition.
Exactly. And in that instant, she had this instinct, this sort of gut feeling to apply that same countdown to her own life, like as a trigger to launch herself out of bed every morning.
Which sounds almost too simple, but what's fascinating about that seemingly simple idea is how it aligns with what we understand about the brain and, pursuing goals.
Right.
Well, research suggests that when you set a goal, your brain is kind of primed to look for opportunities to achieve it. So when you encounter something related to that goal,
Like walking past a gym if you want to get healthier. That example from the book.
exactly, your brain gives you this little intuitive nudge, this instinct to act. It lights up, basically.
Right. Like, hey, that fits the plan. But it's often so quick, that feeling.
Precisely. And the power of the 5-second rule, according to the book, really lies in honoring those initial instincts, no matter how small or even silly they might seem.
So acting on that immediate impulse before your brain has a chance to talk you out of it.
Exactly, before the hesitation fully kicks in.
And it's not just about personal goals, is it? The book shares some really compelling stories of like major breakthroughs that came from someone just following a sudden instinct.
Oh, yeah, the historical examples are great. Think about the invention of the match. John Walker was just messing around with chemicals,
Right. Trying to scrape gunk off a stick.
and boom, fire. Or George de Mistral, the Velcro guy, just a walk with his dog.
And those annoying burrs, cockleburrs, right?
Yep. Led to Velcro. And Art Fry needing a bookmark for his church hymnal that wouldn't fall out or damage the pages.
Hello, Post-it notes.
Exactly. And even the Frappuccino.
At Starbucks, yeah. That was just an assistant manager noticing slow summer sales.
Mm-hmm. Had the instinct to try blending coffee with ice. He experimented, a VP tried it, and, well, the rest is history.
What stands out in all those examples is acting on that initial spark, that intuition.
It's the willingness to bet on that seemingly small impulse, yeah. Not just dismiss it.
So this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown,
Mm-hmm.
the book suggests it acts almost like a mental go button. It specifically engages the prefrontal cortex, right? Can you explain a bit more about why that rapid count is so effective?
Absolutely. So the prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain that's responsible for focus, decision-making, taking deliberate action. Think of it like this.
Yeah.
Often we operate on autopilot, right? Driven by habits.
Sure. Like hitting snooze.
Exactly. The 5-second rule, because it's so quick and deliberate, it seems to momentarily interrupt those habitual thought patterns. It gives the prefrontal cortex a window, a chance to step in and override the instinct to just hesitate
Yeah.
or stay in bed.
So it's like a quick mental reset.
Yeah.
That allows you to consciously choose your next action instead of being ruled by like inertia.
That's a good way to put it. You're consciously activating the doing part of your brain over the resisting part.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. The book explains that our brains are actually like wired to resist the uncertain, the scary, the new. That's why hesitation kicks in so fast.
Exactly right. Your brain's number one job, fundamentally, is to keep you safe. And anything unfamiliar gets flagged as a potential threat, even if it's just, speaking up in a meeting.
So the moment you think about doing something outside your comfort zone,
Your brain's natural inclination is to pump the brakes immediately. That initial resistance happens almost instantaneously.
which really underscores why the book emphasizes acting even faster than that first wave of doubt. You have to beat the brain's safety mechanism in a sense.
Precisely. You've got about a 5-second window before that system fully engages and starts generating excuses or fears.
And this whole idea of courage, it isn't just for those big dramatic life or death moments, is it? The book highlights some really powerful historical examples showing how seemingly small acts of courage in everyday situations can have huge ripple effects.
Absolutely. What's crucial to grasp, I think, is that many pivotal moments in history weren't the result of long, careful deliberation. They were often split-second decisions driven by a sense of conviction.
Like Rosa Parks on that bus.
Yeah.
The book points out it wasn't this pre-planned act of defiance.
No, she later said that after years and years of injustice, she simply felt she couldn't take it anymore. When asked why that moment, she just said, "I was just tired of giving in."
Wow. No lengthy internal debate, just an immediate, instinctual refusal.
Right. And then there's the story of Martin Luther King Jr. in Montgomery. He was nominated to lead the bus boycott just a few days after Rosa Parks' action.
He didn't really have time to think about it.
He later wrote that it all happened so quickly, he didn't have time to fully consider the enormity, the danger, the responsibility. He admitted if he had had time to think, he likely would have declined.
So courage often looks like just stepping up, speaking out, showing up immediately, even when fear is totally present.
Exactly. It's not about not feeling fear, it's about acting in spite of it. And the book makes a really powerful point that this everyday courage isn't some rare trait reserved for heroes. It's an inherent capacity within all of us.
Which makes it so much more relatable when the book then shifts to modern everyday scenarios, places where we all need that little nudge of courage.
Yeah, the examples are so recognizable. We're talking about a sales team feeling demoralized, needing the courage to pick up the phone again.
Or someone like Alice, wanting to lace up her running shoes but feeling totally stuck on the couch.
Or Patel wanting to reach out to a friend who's grieving, but just not knowing how to start that conversation, feeling awkward or afraid of saying the wrong thing.
Yeah, we see Cy hesitant to make those sales calls. Todd feeling the pressure to stick with his pre-law major, even though he's passionate about photography.
And Mark wanting to bridge the distance that's grown between him and his wife, but maybe fearing rejection or vulnerability.
These are all moments where that initial impulse to connect, to act, to change direction is often immediately met with that wall of hesitation, of fear.
That's the battleground right there in those everyday moments.
And that hesitation, the book argues, can be a real breeding ground for regret, right? There's that great Wayne Gretzky quote.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah. And the book really emphasizes that we so often regret the opportunities we didn't seize, much more than the times we tried and maybe stumbled or failed.
That fear of failure can be incredibly paralyzing, can't it? The author shares a personal story about her daughter, Kendall.
Right, the musical audition in New York.
Yeah. Kendall really wanted to go. She was encouraged to, but ultimately didn't follow through. And her reason? She was terrified of not being good enough.
It's almost like a self-protective mechanism, isn't it? By not trying, you avoid the potential disappointment. You get to keep the what if alive.
Exactly. You maintain this belief in your untapped potential, but you never actually test it.
That fear of sucking, it's so real for so many of us. We avoid the challenge just to safeguard our ego, even if it means missing out on something we truly desire.
But the book offers this really liberating counterpoint, almost a mantra. So what?
Huh. Yeah. So what if you suck?
So what if you're not immediately amazing at it? The book powerfully argues that the act of putting yourself out there, of trying, that's where the real growth happens. That's where the power lies.
The most authentic and capable version of yourself emerges when you take that leap, whether it's an audition or starting a conversation or just voicing an idea at work.
It unlocks something inside you, even if the external result isn't perfect.
And then there's worry, that constant mental chatter that can also just hold us hostage. The book discusses worry as kind of a learned behavior.
And its surprisingly detrimental impact on our lives. There's research mentioned from Dr. Carl Pillemer.
Oh, the interviews with senior citizens about their regrets.
Exactly. He interviewed a huge number of older people, and a major recurring theme was the immense amount of time and energy they had wasted worrying about things that, in the end, never even happened.
Wow. Their collective wisdom was basically, Worry is a profound squandering of your precious time.
Pretty much. And the 5-second rule can be an incredibly effective tool to disrupt those cycles of worry.
How does that work?
By counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and immediately shifting your focus to a small, positive action or even just a different thought, you pull yourself out of that downward spiral of what ifs. You get back into the present moment.
Like that example in the book, the prom dress shopping with her daughter. The author started getting anxious about the cost and everything.
Right. And she used the rule to intentionally redirect her thoughts. She asked herself, okay, what am I grateful for right now? What do I want to remember about this experience?
So it's a conscious interruption, focusing on gratitude or a desired outcome instead of the worry.
Exactly. And that conscious act, it actually has a tangible effect on your brain chemistry. It can trigger feelings of positivity. As Hein is quoted saying in the book, something like 99.9999% of worry is just a fake reality created in our heads.
Okay, now anxiety can feel even more intense, more overwhelming than worry. The book offers an interesting perspective, describing panic attacks as almost like a near-miss experience, but happening out of context. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. Think about a time you were driving and maybe almost had an accident. You swerve, your heart pounds, you get that surge of adrenaline, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's a near-miss response.
Mm.
A panic attack can trigger a very similar physical sensation, the racing heart, the shortness of breath, but without that clear external threat. Your body goes into high alert.
And then your mind desperately tries to figure out why, which just makes it worse.
Exactly. It can amplify the anxiety. But here's the fascinating parallel the book highlights. The physiological responses of fear and excitement are actually incredibly similar. Your heart rate increases, your breathing quickens.
Really, fear and excitement feel the same physically.
Largely, yes. The key difference lies in how your mind interprets those sensations.
Ah. So could consciously reframing that feeling, telling yourself, I'm excited, instead of I'm scared, actually make a difference?
The evidence suggests yes, absolutely. If you can train your brain to attach a positive label, excitement, to those physical sensations, it's less likely to interpret them as danger and escalate into full-blown anxiety.
The author used this for public speaking, right? Those pre-speech jitters.
She intentionally told herself, I'm excited, and it helped shift her mindset. She also talks about her son's anxiety about sleepovers.
Reframing it as excitement for the fun he'd have.
Exactly. It's about changing the narrative your brain tells about the physical feelings.
The book also introduces this idea of beating fear with anchors. What does that technique involve? It sounds intriguing.
It does. It involves consciously focusing your thoughts on positive outcomes or desired destinations, specifically to counteract feelings of fear. The author used to have a significant fear of flying.
Right, with superstitions and everything.
Yeah. To combat this, she trained herself to vividly imagine the positive aspects of her trip, seeing her family, the beautiful vacation spot, having a successful business meeting.
So those are the anchor thoughts.
Exactly. They provide your mind with a positive alternative to dwell on instead of the fear. They anchor you to the reason you're enduring the discomfort, reminding you of the reward at the end. It helps ground you in a more positive future outcome.
Like Fran in the book, who used it on her flight home after a conference and found it really helped.
It dramatically reduced her flight anxiety.
So it's about intentionally giving your mind something positive, something concrete to focus on, instead of letting the fear just take over. Makes sense. Now, all this talk about taking action despite fear, how does that process actually contribute to building genuine confidence?
That's a great question. The book defines confidence quite simply. It's believing in yourself and your ideas.
Okay.
And courage is the engine that drives that belief. Every single time you push past your hesitation using something like the 5-second rule and you take action, even a small step outside your comfort zone.
You're basically proving something to yourself.
Exactly. You are providing evidence to yourself that you are capable, that you can handle it. The author talks about being terrified before speaking at a big Cisco Systems event.
But doing it anyway.
Right. And that act significantly boosted her self-assurance. She even challenged the audience there to use the 5-second rule right then and there to introduce themselves to 3 people they didn't know.
And the results of that little challenge were quite telling, weren't they? People like Trace, who felt kind of stuck.
Yeah, Trace felt stuck in her career. She used the rule to initiate conversations right there in the room and reported feeling this real shift, this sense of momentum, just from that small act.
So confidence isn't something you're just born with or something you wait to feel. It's built.
It's built. brick by brick, through accumulated experiences of taking action and seeing positive results, even tiny ones. It's about proving to yourself over and over that you can handle challenges.
Like Crystal at that same event, realizing she always doubted her ideas.
She had this long-standing habit. Using the 5-second rule helped her overcome it, starting with just sitting next to people she didn't know, and then eventually feeling empowered enough to ask questions in a session she'd previously been too intimidated to even speak in.
Small actions, building confidence.
Now, this idea of stepping outside your comfort zone also connects really strongly with pursuing your passions. How does the book link courage to identifying and actually following what you're truly passionate about? Well, it highlights the importance of paying attention to what sparks your curiosity. And interestingly, even what triggers feelings of, like, constructive envy.
Constructive envy. How does that work?
If you find yourself constantly drawn to a particular subject or really admiring someone else's work in a specific field, not in a negative way, but in an I wish I could do that way, that's often a strong indicator of your own underlying passions.
Oh, okay. So it's a clue.
It's a clue. And the key then is to have the courage to take those initial small steps. Maybe signing up for a class, reading a book, reaching out to someone already doing it.
Like Joe, the banker in London, took one photography class.
Yeah, just on a whim.
Yeah.
And that one small courageous step ultimately led her to a complete career change and a much more fulfilling life as a photographer.
But even once you've maybe identified your passion and you feel ready to pursue it, the book acknowledges it's not always, comfortable or easy. There can be resistance.
Oh, absolutely not. Pursuing passion often requires significant courage, especially if it goes against expectations. Think about Todd in Australia.
The law student who wanted to do physical education.
Exactly. He knew his heart was in physical education, but he was studying law and business basically to meet his parents' expectations. For 4 years, that inner voice, his passion, was nagging at him.
But the fear of disappointing his family kept him stuck.
Totally paralyzed. Until he used the 5-second rule, he literally stood up in the middle of a lecture, walked out, unenrolled from law, and applied for the phys ed degree he truly desired.
Wow, that took guts.
It absolutely did. It was undoubtedly uncomfortable, maybe even terrifying in that moment, but it was a necessary act of courage to align his life with his true passion.
The book then shares that really thought-provoking parable, the one about the man searching the world for treasure.
Only to return home and discover it was buried in his own backyard all along. Yes.
How does that connect back to this idea of courage and passion?
It's such a powerful metaphor, isn't it? It reminds us that our greatest potential, our personal power, that treasure, it resides within us. It's not something we need to find externally.
We unlock it ourselves.
We unlock it by listening to our inner voice, to those instincts and passions, and crucially, having the courage to act on them. As the book wisely says, there's no expiration date on discovering and expressing your own unique power. It's always there, waiting.
And ultimately, the book really drives home this point that significant life change can often hinge on just one single decision, one moment of courage.
Yeah.
But we're so frequently held back by that fear of the unknown, right? That desire for guarantees before we even take the first step.
We naturally crave certainty, don't we? We want to know it's going to work out before we commit. But the reality is, bringing dreams to life, making big changes, it almost always requires embracing risk and persevering through inevitable setbacks.
The book gives some pretty compelling examples of that perseverance.
Oh, yeah. Rovio, the creators of Angry Birds, they launched 51 unsuccessful games before hitting the jackpot with Angry Birds.
51. Wow.
Mark Ruffalo, nearly 600 auditions before landing his breakthrough role. Babe Ruth, the home run king, also held the record for strikeouts for decades. James Dyson,
The vacuum cleaner guy.
over 5,000 prototypes before he perfected his vacuum cleaner. 5,000. Even Picasso produced over 50,000 works of art.
So the common thread isn't guaranteed success, it's starting and just keeping going.
It's the willingness to start, to experiment, to fail, and critically to keep going even without any assurance of success. That's where the courage comes in again and again.
This ties into how our feelings play a role in decisions. The book references Damasio's research on how we subconsciously weigh options and make gut calls based on emotions. How does the 5-second rule kind of intersect with that?
Right. Damasio's work suggests that every time we face a decision, big or small, our brains quickly run through potential outcomes on an emotional level. That's where those gut feelings come from. It's a rapid, subconscious pro and con list based on feeling.
Okay.
The 5-second rule provides a really powerful way to sort of separate those initial, often fleeting emotional responses from our immediate actions.
How so?
Well, you might not feel like going for that run when you're tired. Your gut feeling might be, ugh, stay on the couch.
Definitely felt that.
Right. Or you might not feel like tackling that big, daunting task on your to-do list. Or you might not feel like speaking your mind when you feel uncertain or unworthy. But using the 5-second rule, that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, it gives you that brief window to act in alignment with your goals or values despite those temporary feelings.
So it's about recognizing that you can choose your behavior even when your emotions are screaming something else.
Precisely. It helps you separate feelings from actions. You acknowledge the feeling, okay, I feel tired, scared, and motivated, but you act anyway.
So it's about prioritizing action over the often unreliable guidance of our immediate feelings. Is that fair?
I think that's a very fair way to put it. You can't always dictate how you feel, moment to moment, but you always have the power to choose how you act. Think about professional athletes.
Pushing through exhaustion.
Exactly. They don't stop playing because they feel tired. Feelings are often just temporary suggestions from your body or brain. To create real change, you sometimes need to consciously override those immediate impulses and simply take action.
Lin-Manuel Miranda, right? The book mentions his struggle writing Hamilton.
Yeah, he openly spoke about his constant struggles with self-doubt throughout the 6 years it took to write it. But his message to himself and to others was basically, acknowledge the doubt, then get back to your piano, keep doing the work.
Get back to the piano. I like that.
Mm.
And it doesn't always have to involve these huge, life-altering decisions or massive creative projects, does it? The book really emphasizes the profound impact of seemingly small actions, like just getting out of bed when your alarm goes off.
Absolutely. That seemingly minor act, the first decision of the day, for many, can actually instill a huge sense of personal agency. It sets a positive tone, as Emma and Tracy in the book discovered.
They found it changed their whole day.
Yeah. Taking control of those first few moments, overcoming that initial inertia of wanting to stay warm in bed, it created this ripple effect. It led to more proactive choices throughout the rest of the day. It's that initial win against hesitation that builds momentum.
The book also touches on planning for success, like having morning routines, and even setting a quitting time for work. How do these kinds of structures relate to overcoming hesitation?
Well, having a structured morning routine helps you start your day with intention. You focus on your priorities before you get swept up in emails and reactive demands.
So you're proactive, not reactive.
Exactly. And setting a deliberate quitting time for work, it creates a boundary. It introduces a sense of urgency and focus during your working hours. It leverages Parkinson's law,
Good use.
the idea that work tends to expand to fill the time available for its completion. So if you give yourself all day and night, it might take that long. If you set a quitting time,
You get more focused to finish by then.
right. These frameworks can help prevent that feeling of being overwhelmed, which often leads to hesitation and procrastination. They give you a clearer sense of direction and make it easier to take those first steps because the path feels more defined.
Now, procrastination. That's a big one. So many people grapple with it. The book makes an interesting distinction between destructive and productive procrastination. Can you explain that?
Sure. According to the book, productive procrastination can actually be a useful strategy, especially for creative projects. It's about consciously setting something aside for a period.
Letting it simmer.
Exactly. You allow your subconscious mind to keep working on it in the background. You might go for a walk, do something else, and often you come back with fresh insights or solutions. The author actually found this helpful when writing the 5-second rule itself.
Okay, so that's productive. What about destructive procrastination?
That's the more common kind we struggle with. It's the avoidance of tasks you know you need to complete, usually fueled by fear, overwhelm, perfectionism, or just feeling stuck.
That feeling of being stuck in your head, yeah. Scott's example in the book, right?
Just spinning your wheels mentally. For that kind, the book suggests a few things. One is self-compassion.
Like Trishki discovered. Stop beating yourself up.
Exactly. Stop berating yourself for procrastinating because that often just adds another layer of negative emotion. Instead, focus gently on just taking one small step forward. It's also about shifting focus from the fear of failure.
Like Ryan launching his business.
Right. Shift from worrying about the outcome to just focusing on the act of taking action itself. Even if it's imperfect, just doing something breaks that cycle of inaction and starts building momentum again.
And visualizing your future self, that's another technique the book mentions. How can imagining who you want to be help you stop procrastinating now?
It's based on research by Dr. Pekel and others, highlighting this disconnect we often feel between our present self, the one who wants to scroll social media, and our future self, the one who benefits from us working out or finishing the report.
We don't feel connected to that future person.
Often, no. So when you vividly imagine the person you aspire to be, your more successful, healthier, more confident future self, it creates a stronger emotional connection to that vision. It makes the future rewards feel more real and present.
And that provides motivation to push past the immediate discomfort of doing the hard thing now.
Exactly. Creating a vision board or even just taking a few moments each day to mentally picture that future self and what they'd be doing can be a surprisingly powerful motivator.
So, in essence, the 5-second rule acts as a kind of starting ritual to short-circuit that whole procrastination loop.
That's a perfect way to describe it. It interrupts the tendency to overthink, analyze, and hesitate. It acts as a simple physical trigger for immediate action, helping you replace negative default habits like hitting snooze or opening a distracting app with a more empowering one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Take that first step.
As we talked about earlier, it's just as powerful for interrupting those mental loops of worry and anxiety, too.
Yes, absolutely. It's a versatile tool. By providing that quick, simple way to shift your focus and take immediate control of your thoughts and, crucially, your actions, you can break free from those negative thought spirals before they really take hold.
Like the author before her father's surgery, or Katie using gratitude.
Mm-hmm. Interrupt, redirect, act.
Finally, the book strongly encourages us, maybe most importantly, to take action in our relationships, to not wait for the perfect moment to connect with loved ones, ask hard questions, or express our feelings.
That's such a profoundly important message, isn't it? Because the right time often just never arrives on its own. We wait, and opportunities pass.
The author's story about her father needing brain surgery is really moving, using the rule to finally have that honest conversation.
Yes, it gave her the courage to push past the awkwardness and fear and have a really heartfelt conversation with him about his fears, about everything before the operation, something she might have otherwise regretted not doing.
And Courtney, estranged from her father for years.
Used the rule as the simple catalyst to just pick up the phone and call him, breaking years of silence with one 5-second decision.
And Karen's story about her brother Josh, who lived with such intention.
A poignant reminder, wasn't it? He always made sure to express his love and appreciation for people. The key takeaway is just so vital. Don't let fear or hesitation or waiting for the perfect time prevent you from saying what needs to be said, from connecting with the people who matter most. Leave nothing important unsaid.
Wow. Okay, so to kind of bring it all together then, the core message we've really explored today is the remarkable power of everyday courage, sparked by this deceptively simple 5-second rule
Deceptively simple, yeah.
to help us break free from fear and hesitation in countless moments, big and small, throughout our lives.
Absolutely. Incredible transformations really do become possible when you start to consistently honor those initial nudges of intuition, those instincts from your heart, and just take decisive action. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
The book is just packed with examples, isn't it? People using this rule to make massive changes.
Oh, totally. Quitting jobs they hated, ending relationships that weren't serving them, finally launching that business idea, pursuing a dream role, or even just walking across a room to approach someone new.
It covers the whole spectrum.
It really does. It's about reclaiming agency in your own life, moment by moment.
Okay, so with all that in mind, here's maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to consider. What is one small act of courage, no matter how tiny it might seem right now, that you can take in the next 5 seconds? Just one thing to move even an inch closer to what you truly desire in your life.
A powerful question.
And remember, as the book implies, the biggest risk we often face isn't actually in failing. It's in failing to even try.
Well said. If you're intrigued by these ideas and want to delve deeper into the neuroscience, the psychology, and the countless ways the 5-second rule can be applied, we definitely recommend checking out the source itself. The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins.
Lots more stories and details in there.
Absolutely. It's a very practical read.